let's see here. That's not what I wanted to do. Nope. I want to leave this. How do I? It's been a long time since I've been on, but I'm here. It's time to sing a song. I'm probably still in someone's song. What am I looking for here? I think I want to do Code with Brian. Code with Brian. Look at us here. We're live. There's no viewers. Look at that. That's always so much fun. I love when I do this. Jeez. Woot. Look at it just keep going. It's like infinity. Let's see here. I need to turn the sound off from the computer. There we go. Let's see. What else do we need to do here? Brianceptions. Cooper! It's been so long. Cooper! It's been so long. Oh. But man, how about Escape from Tarkov? Just like cranking up the like 30 plus. Is that happening? Okay, that's just in my headphones that I'm getting like the awesome feedback. Cause I'm here. I just wanted to do this. Okay, now we can close this. Oh man, I gotta still change that that logo. Whatever. Logos will get changed. Infinite Brimes. What's up, Zeph? What is up? You know, I'll just tell the handful of you that are here why I haven't been around. Wait, Coop, are you actually here? Like, can you see the video? Do you have real internets? Oh, crazy. Nice. Crushing the interviews are good. That's good. Yeah, I how the heck do I leave a channel in a voice channel in Discord? How do, it's like escapes me. I just don't even understand. Oh, look, there's Cooper in the general chat.
It's down at the bottom.
Oh, where I hang up the general chat. Well, hey, while I've got you here, I changed the name of our Discord to Code with Brian because of a whole bunch of legal issues, and that I think broke the join link. Question mark.
Did it?
I don't know if you can check and see somehow.
It didn't break.
Okay, great. Never mind then. Everything should be just fine. Sweet.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, I had a legal issue with a very large company that shall stay unnamed, so I don't have to deal with that issue again. But the old name that I used to go by, which involved the word code and the other word quests, is trademarked, and so I can't be using that. But anyway, I'm gonna hang up out of the general thing.
Okay.
It's nice hearing you. I like hearing your
Yeah.
voice. Wouldn't it be awesome if we get to a point where like we can use this like voice channel in the Discord for the actual like session? We'll get there
Yes.
soon. We'll get there soon. And then like live code so people can be interacting, and then Twitch is just the for fun part. All right, anywho, hanging up. Oh, look at that. That was so easy. But clear down at the bottom. The problem for me is my Discord is on a 4K screen, so it's 2 screens tall, and looking at the top and the bottom is like 3 feet worth of screen. Not to brag or anything. Discord, yes. Yes, Zeph, if you were to scroll down in my channel, hopefully there's a link to the Discord still. Oh, look, there it is. So that's the link, huh? I wonder. Let us know if that works. Cool. Well, so mostly today, I'm just wanting to make sure everything's working still because I haven't done this for a while. It's been like since pre-holidays. I'm gonna get back into doing it again. I don't know if it'll be every night like it was, but maybe more focused. But what I want to talk about tonight is a really fun topic. And actually, it starts with a tweet that I can't access. Come on. Oh. Okay, close that. There we go. General. Oh man, Twitter's so good. So check this out. Housecore, Corey House, he's a developer. He says, common mistakes I see in React. What? Thank you for the Prime subscription. Thank you. Oh man. Sir Potato. Thank you for all of the Brick Breaker sandboxes. Code Sandbox actually probably appreciates that more than anyone else. So that's totally legit. Yay, the subscriptions can happen again. At this rate, guys, at this rate, I suspect I will hit my $100 mark in about a month so I can actually get money from Twitch. It's going to happen. Nice. Thanks for that, Zeph. Thanks. Whoa. Yeah, weird flow, but at least it works. Cool. So this guy, he's like common mistake I see in React apps, putting state in the wrong spot. And then he's like, simple strategy, put state in the component that needs it. Step 2, do child components need the data too? Pass it down. Do parents need it? Lift it up. Sounds like a you lift me up. See what I did there? Hey, Stanley. He says, strive to keep state as low as possible. Now, he did not invent these rules. These are not the first time I've seen these rules, but this is a recent resurfacing of these rules, and it's totally a really good idea. Down here, a person that I know, Polly right here, says, can you talk a bit about context? I'm just getting into React. Now, if he had been going to my class and paying attention, he might know quite a bit about context, but, you know, slacker. Just kidding. He's actually in my class. I like Polly. I'm just messing. So, I want to get to his question, but I also want to just talk about what this all means from a React hooks perspective, and you know, within the next hour, build some kind of crazy app that shows like at what point does it become a smart idea to maybe use context or maybe another type of state management like the reducer hook, and then maybe talk about how to make it performant and talk about some other hooks like use memo, and just we're going to get really on the deep side. So this is not for beginners. If you don't know React, not you. You should just leave. But if you know React, stick around because we're gonna get pretty deep here. This is like already done, and we're going to avoid this. Does it have all of my crazy bad code that broke things? No, it doesn't. It stopped before things broke. Okay, good. Let me open up my dashboard in a new tab. And I'm just going to open up a new sandbox. Actually, does it say create React sandbox? It's like, we know that's what you want to do, so just click that button. Woot woot. I need to fork this one apparently. Okay, here we go. So now this is my code. Let's talk about what this state management stuff in React is all about. Looks like Stanley's fallen asleep on my shoulder. That's fine. No one cares, Stanley. You don't have to help me code tonight. Someday we'll get Ben back on here, but he's like, I thought I could code, but Brian's just magical, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And I'm like, dude, you can do it. You can do it. Okay, so maybe he'll lurk someday again for us. I don't know. Probably doesn't even know I'm on. Whatever. Okay, so state. State. Where does state come from? Why do we need state? Why, like, why? So to help us understand why we need state, what we're going to do here is get a button. Let's just do this. Let's add a button here. No. The button's got to be below. Let's just replace this guy here with a button. And that's not how you do that, but you do it like that. There we go. And a button. And let's just say grow, because that's a word. I just can't deal with default styling of buttons, so we're just gonna like inline some styles real quick. So like let's drop in a background color here, and you all know what color it's gonna be. Oh yes, Rebecca Purple. It's our fave. You don't know what it is, go Google it. It's make you cry. Can't talk anymore about it or I'll start crying. So we got Rebecca Purple for the background. Padding, I can never do this one right, but I've had to adjust the way I approach it, but I think it's like 10 pixels, 12 pixels, and 8 pixels. And we'll get to that one in just a second. But then in here, we're going to do font, family, sans serif. I think that's how that one works. Font size. Oh man. Font size. This is always a good one. We'll just say 20. That'll become 20 pixels. Border radius definitely should be 4. And last, we need to change the color to that. Okay, so now I'll feel okay because this button will look good and life will be all right. Because I can't have a bad looking button. Okay, so the whole point of state. What's up, Pirates Galore? Man, I heard you bumped into some of my other students. Was that yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. Yeah. So state, why we need it. So let's say when I click this grow button, I want a value to change. So let's just add the value out here. Const value equals 1. All right. So we're going to use the concept of in React called not in React, in programming in general called closure, where we're going to create a function that will close around a value, and we can then manipulate and change that value, and it would then manipulate it everywhere else because it's a higher up value or higher up variable. So I'm just going to come right here into our button. We'll do it above the style so that we can focus on all the stuff up here and not worry about the style, but we'll do this on click and we'll say, hey, on click, I want you to take value and plus it. All right, so it doesn't necessarily value is a constant, of course. There we go. So on click plus value. All right, and then right here we're gonna exit the JSX, or the JSX, the HTML piece, and we're going to be able to write some JavaScript and drop value in here. All right, so we grab value, see it's 1, and then we click this button, 1 will become 2, and so then voila, we re-render. And this becomes like a higher value, but that's not what happens. Nope, and nope. Now, if I open this up, what I would like to show you is that this value does indeed increase. Sources. We got to give ourselves a way to hook into this. So let's just do a debugger here. And actually, let's do a debugger here. So these debuggers will interrupt the code flow and allow us to kind of see what's going on. So here we go. So value, all right? So value is 1 here, all right? And I'm in the sources area, and when we add these debugger, it opens us up there. And then I can open up this really cool area called watch. And apparently I was at once upon a time watching Knackboard. Cool. But right now what we're going to do is I'm going to type in here value. And value is 1. True story. All right. So now if I click this button, oh, this is not updated. Ben just called me old. Whatever. Okay, now we have the debugger here. That's the guy I was looking for. It wasn't there before. All right, so now I click grow, and we hit this debugger. All right. So this is good. This is good. So now we can see what's kind of happening here. So currently we're not in this scope of code, so value is not available. But if I click this button again, value is 2. So value is indeed increasing. All right. So it's 3 now, 4 now. It's actually technically 5. But we're just not in an area where the thread that's running can see it. Ooh, that's neat. I've never played with the threads before. But this value is indeed being changed by this, but it's not updating here. And the reason that is because React isn't aware. Let's come back over to the actual code. React isn't aware about some global value and it changing and needing and like knowing, oh, some global value change. I should update. That would just be too crazy. So what we have to do is we have to hook into React's system and say, hey, there's a value that I want to play with. And when this value changes, I kind of need things to re-render, right? And so that introduces us and gives us the access and reason for use state. If we're using class components, we have set state, kind of the same thing, kind of the same reasons it exists. But this is why state itself exists within React, is because we need some way to tell React that something changed. You need to update the virtual DOM. When the virtual DOM updates, it'll diff it against the actual DOM, and it'll be like, oh, there's a difference. We should look like this, and boom, we get the re-render. So we're going to pretty much leave our code the same, except for we're going to take this bit of code here, and we're going to move it down here. All right, and we're going to call this a const, and we're going to say value. We're going to say set value, and then we're going to use state and say that its initial value is 1. So real quick on this I will go into a little detail just so we're all aware. This is destructuring. If you haven't seen it before, then you probably shouldn't be watching this video. I'm not going to explain that stuff. Here is a use state hook. It takes a default value of 1. It returns an array. The first element in the array is value. The second element in the array is set value. So then we can use set value down here to say that value plus plus is, or actually, sorry, I don't know if it works this way, but I'm going to say value plus 1 is now the new value. All right? And so I'm going to leave those debuggers there. This is saved. We'll refresh this guy. So behavior is still the same. We hit this debugger in the render flow. All right? You'll see that value is equal to 1. So when I push play here, we get the 1. Now when I click grow, this debugger here gets hit because that was in our click. And we're just about to run set value to value plus 1. All right? So when I click the play button, we trigger a re-render. Value is now 2. So now the value that we're referencing for this render is 2. And I'll click play, and now we're at 2. Now if I come over here and disable our stuff so that we just skip the debuggers, I can rage click this button and we grow. All right, so this is the initial reason why we have state in React. So now that we know why we have state in React, let's talk a little bit about this whole concept of, well, gee, he said in the tweet, Mr. Corey House says, put state in the component that needs it. Do child components need the data too? Pass it down. So currently we have state in the component that needs it. Well, what if there's a child component that needs the data as well, or a child component is the one that needs it? Well, if a child component is the one that needs it, then the parent doesn't need it, so then we should just move it to the child component. But let's assume a child component needs the data as well. Makes sense. So then we pass it down. Do parents need the data? Then we lift it up. All right? So we're going to kind of do both of these at the same time and talk about like how we can move them around, and we'll illustrate that right here in this app. So we have a component here. Now I'm going to break some rules. Typically if we make another component, we move it into another file, yada yada yada, but I am all about right now seeing what's going on and being able to follow things. And so to help with that, I'm not going to open up like 40 files and have a whole bunch of stuff everywhere. We're just going to keep everything in here. I don't expect we're going to be more than like 100 lines, so it shouldn't be too hard for our brains to keep context. So here we go. So function, and we'll call it inner child. Channel your inner child. Ah! Channeled inner child. Winner. That was probably the most awkward thing ever. Mr. Pat Black, what up? Sorry, I did not say hi to you probably as soon as you did to me in the chat. I don't have my system all the way set up, so I don't have the chat easily visible. I should fix that. Nah, I don't got time. I'm sorry. We're deep in this. I'll make sure to peek up there occasionally. But man, here we go. Inner child. This really is just going to return for us. Nothing too complex. We just got a div here and another div. And for whatever reason, oh, we need to close the div, sorry. For whatever reason, we're going to destructure props and grab the children. Actually, no. I've been on a kick lately where I just grab the props, and I don't know if this is bad or whatever, but it just saves a lot of typing here. So basically, I'm just grabbing the props and spreading the props onto the div, and it doesn't like something. I don't know what it doesn't like. Oh, I'm missing a dot. Okay, so then we just need to use inner child, and we're going to put the inner child right here. The inner child is going to act very much like this h1 and have our value there. Oh, geez. Come on, work with me here. There we go. All right, so here's our little grow. So again, what we've done is we had a child that needed this this state, right? So this is app is the parent, and inner child is the child, and it needed the state. We've passed in the value as a, this isn't like needing the state. We should do it like this. Value equals value. This way we're not like using the, I mean, it's technically the same thing, but this way we can like see that the inner child is getting, let's see, what did we call it? Value here. And then we'll destructure this and get value. All right. Why are you mad at? Oh, you're not. Okay. So I click this grow button, and this value that's being passed down to the child's re-rendering every time, right? This value changes because the prop is changing, and so we're seeing it. Okay. Another way we like not React, vanilla JavaScript, like in order for us to solve this, we could be really smart with a lot of like passing around functional stuff, or a lot of us might just be like, oh, this function needs that value and this function needs that value. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a global variable up here so that both functions can just grab that variable. And then we run into closure areas, memory leaks, yada, 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 blah, 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 and it's just really bad. Coop says, has sudden urge to pick up Discord bot dashboard project I have not touched since November when he graduated. Woot woot. I think that is a fabulous idea. I think so. Anywho, so what's happening here is we're passing in this value. Now, if we were in this child and we said, like, maybe it's the reverse, we're like, hey, let's do buggers because they're going to drive me nuts later. If we had initially created it here and we're like, hey, this parent needs it, then we would just move the use state up, right? So that they both can have this value, and then we're just passing it on to the child. Okay. Now, there is a concept of what is referred to as prop drilling. There's an excellent post recently, I believe, by Kent C. Dodds about it. Google it, find it. It's pretty great. Actually, I really don't know if it's great, but if it's from him, it's probably pretty good. I haven't read it yet. But what we're talking about when we talk about props drilling is we have several inner childs. And each inner child, or not all of them, but like the very last one is the one that needs this value. So we're like passing it in from here to here to here to here to here. Eventually we get to the one that needs it all the way down here, and we render it. Some people are actually pretty okay with that in their app. So they just pass all the stuff down. They pass other things around so they can update it, right? And that's okay. It's a way to do it. For me, if I'm passing things 3 or 4 levels, I start being like, oh, maybe there's a better way. It just feels weird that I'm just passing this value around just so this last one can have it. And so we'll talk about a way to manage that part of state. Another one that starts to get really awkward is when you have one value that's like at a parent level, and we're talking about like several generations down. These are like fifth cousins, and they all need the value, right? At that point, when I've passed it down to this parent, and then this parent and its siblings all have it, and it gets passed down to their children, and all of the children need it, and it gets passed down to those children, and all those children need it, and it renders those, like that's where it's finally being rendered, then it feels weird, right? But like it needed to be at that top level so that they all could be getting it, right? That's when things start getting weird. And if we go back to this tweet, he doesn't really talk about that. He says, well, if a parent needs it, great, lift it up. But what if, for number 4, what if like a lot of siblings need that same state? That's where the answer here to our friend Paul comes into place. Polly. So, look, this is even Polly.js. He's so smart. So let's just talk real quick about how we can start playing with this problem and resolving it. All right. So I have another project that I created earlier, and I'm just gonna like borrow things from it and bring them over here, so that we can talk about the problem and solving it bit by bit and seeing the issues that we're dealing with, and then finally getting to a solution that's actually pretty amazing. And then if we have some time, we'll just see how performant it actually is, because I really don't know. And see what other things we can do to do performance stuff with it. So we're going to start with managing a wide array of state and then working on making it performant. So just to show you kind of what we're trying to make, because it's here, we have this grid. It's 8 by 8. It's like a chessboard, except for it's technically backwards. That didn't fix. I thought that would fix it. Whatever. Was it the right way before that? Why does it make the same? Whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So we've got this chessboard looking thing here, and when you click one, it just turns on or off, right? So you can kind of like do like your own thing here. Yeah. Talk about some money. Look at that. Boom. So like we can turn things on and off. That's the whole point here. All right. So 1 penny. Did I make this in a different stream? No, I made this in like a half hour or so at the end of class today during office hours. So we're going to talk about each individual piece, what it's doing, and talk about how we can ignore some pieces here, and talk about like how we get to this piece working and some of the problems that we're going to run into. So first chunk of stuff I'm going to steal is this whole thing here. And what it is, I'll walk us through it. It's kind of some cool code. I'm going to make a new file for it so we can ignore it a lot easier. We're going to call it create state.js. So this creates the state of our app in order for us to use it and get the pieces that we need. Like in an actual app, it might be the result of making a request to a database and then changing the data up a little bit. But so let's just paste this in here. And what I'm going to do at the very end, actually I don't need to do it like that at all. I need this one, export tiles, and I need export tile state. So when this file runs, it's going to create an array of strings that are, the strings are either this or this, and there's 8 of them in an array. And that's what creates our initial grid load here that looks kind of like a chessboard. This is like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So we're creating what's referred to as a tile map, where I have simple characters that tell the rendering engine what goes in that position. So if we were to like make this out, if you will, what this ends up looking like, actually, let's just do this. Import, actually, let's do, yeah, I need to do that. Import tiles and tile, what did I call the other one? tile and tile state. So here's tile and tile state. We're going to set this equal to, oh geez, nope, we're importing that from, it's like I don't know how to import anything, from / create state. So this will cause create state to run, and we'll get these values. Except for not, I guess. Let's refresh this guy here. Here we go. Okay, so oh, that's tiles. I need a console log tile map so we can see that. Console.log tile map. There we go. Now the tile. Oh my gosh, wrong one. Wrong one. Embarrassing. So embarrassing. All right. So hopefully now we can see what the tile map looks like. So we get this. So let's just bring this back over here because prettier will help us see it prettierly. This is what it creates for us. Now you're like, well, you just created that like once, so why have a function that creates it? Why not just statically create it? Well, long story short, I want to make it so that we can change this number and get a much different size and crazier different things and do some things. So then essentially what we end up doing is with this shape here, this ends up being this grid. Right? So we look at a 1, do one thing, look at a 0, do another thing. This is a pretty popular strategy for like tile mapping in like 2D games. I'm not sure if they can do stuff like this in a 3D game. I mean, I guess you could like from a top-down perspective if it's just flat, like label where stuff goes. And I guess you could maybe create additional tile maps for additional floors. I don't know. Let's not get too deep into that. I guess you could do like 3D matrices. Anywho, whatever. Brian, stop. Okay, so basically this is it, right? So then we turn it into the tiles array. The tiles array are just all of the tiles in an array format, and there's a reason why we're doing this. But essentially we end up with x0, y0, a unique ID for them, and a type, all right? And then we take that array and we turn it into, we use reducer to turn it into an object for mapping purposes. So we can use the ID to quickly find this value. All right, so we don't have to look it up in this array every time. It's really quick and fast for us to just find it in this map. All right, so there are reasons why we have both, and we'll talk about that next. So in here, the next thing that we do is we're going to loop through the tiles and print them out. So let's see here. In our app, we're going to get rid of a lot of these things. I'm going to call this state and this one set state. We're going to be passing the tile state into here, and we'll talk about why tile state is in here and not tiles. But ultimately, I'm just going to get rid of this whole chunk here and drop in the tiles. Now, we don't have a tile, so tile will replace our inner child with tile. That feels weird. Replacing our inner child with tile just feels weird. It does, it does. Okay, so then we have tile. Now, tile has some extra stuff, so I'm going to just get rid of a few things so that we're not at this like magical moment and we're just, oh no. Oh, okay. Yep, we're in the state of things are awful. Everything is awful. Too many of these. There is no on click. Man, I gotta turn off this like auto File preferences settings. It's probably Code Sandbox settings actually. Preview? Preview on edit. Preview the latest code without saving. No. Causing way too many problems. Because what's happening is I'm looping through a whole bunch of stuff and I have a whole bunch of broken code and it's like trying to update the app based on that stuff. But now it'll only do it on save. Okay, so yeah, we don't have a state ID here. This is absolutely true. Also don't have a type. Man, it's we're like problems up the wazoo. Oh, please refresh. Oh, no. Yeah, that's fine at this point. Oh, yay. We recovered a file. Thank you. Thank you for recovering the file. Okay, so we have a grid here. All right, so we don't have the functionality of clicking and changing things, right? But we are using the tiles and the tile state that we created. We're using a map to map through. We're passing the information onto a tile, right? And then here we have the tile so that these guys here all look the way they're supposed to. So we're just saying, hey, are you a type 1? Then be Rebecca Purple. If you're not, you should be white. Right? So that is winning so far. So now let's talk about, well, how do we get it so that when I click, I can update the state? All right? So let's start. We have this like global state here of all of the tiles. And you might be saying, well, a tile only needs to know if it is on or off. This is true. In our practice, like if we were to follow the practices here that Corey has said, like, hey, keep the state where it needs it, okay? So really we could just solve this whole problem with putting a state right here, right? We could say, hey, use state, and your type is this one or this one, and on click, adjust it from 1 to 0, and problem solved. But let's just imagine for a moment this thing is a really large app. This data that we're dealing with here is in the cloud. It's in a database, and we're pulling it down. And as we pull it down, then we're going to change it, manipulate it, and then we need to be able to turn it back into that format, into that array structure with strings, and put it back up into the cloud to save it for later. All right? So let's pretend that that's the flow that we're dealing with. So since that is the case, we're gonna always be getting tiles, and at least this tile, we like end up with an array of tiles. If we're smart, we put them in state so we don't have to keep looping through. But we do have the initial loop here to create the look as we loop through. All right. So that's just where we're at, and that's kind of why we end up in this position, because what we would like to do is be able to take collectively all of this information that's in our state and change it back into this format. So we can save this format in a database, because this format translates really easily for us. We could have like more detail here or whatever, but we don't need to. These numbers correlate really easily for us into what we want. That is not what we want.
So back at the app, okay, so there are a couple ways we could do this. First, we could try passing set state here, and then we have set state as an option, and then we could add a click and update the state. And maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. Remember, our state is the tile state, and the tile state is how should we say a map. All right, so let's first start like set state is here. Let's just pass an on click onto the tile, and this on click will house our functionality for updating state. All right, so set state to state. Now will you do it? Okay, thank you. So basically what we're doing here is we're saying on click, what I'd like you to do is update the state to be the current version of the state, right? So then this will update state here, but these tiles weren't created with state. So then I guess I'm gonna have to pass state into every single tile as well so that they can get their type from state. Seems a little crazy, but let's just try it. So we're gonna update it with state, but specifically on this one, we're gonna take the ID of where we're at. Ah, yes, Brian is welcomed back by ah, yes. That felt so weird to say. Ah, yes. Woo! Yes, I'm back. Intermittently back. Still trying to figure out what the right schedule is. Every day was really hard on the family, and I also ran into some legal issues, but we'll get this all figured out. So, anywho, we do have our ID here that we've got. So, key equals tile ID. All right, and this ID is what maps to in our tile state. So if we come back over here and refresh, oh man, stuff's in a really broken state. Okay, so if we come back here, basically we're gonna say state ID. Oh yeah, it is really broken everywhere. Okay, and then we're gonna spread into this state ID, and then, oh, except for that's not a comma. That should just be like that. And then we're going to say type is basically this thing. But we need this chunk in front of this type. This is getting crazy, I know. I'll talk about it in just a second, talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it. Tile.id, 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 and then we can change this to a 0 and this to a 1. Thanks, IS. Yes, I do want to stream every day. Thanks for dropping in and saying hi. I will definitely have a great weekend. You too have a great weekend. So, what is all of this madness? So basically, when we click on any single tile, we don't want to update all of them to change. So here is first us spreading out all 8x8, so 64. Then we're going to override this specific tile ID that we're at. So then we're going to pass in what it currently has, which is its X, Y, ID, and other things. And now we're going to override just the type. So all of this, it sounds crazy, but all of this allows us just to change the type on one tile when we click on it. So I'm going to click this right here. and nothing happens because our tile needs the on click. So we'll take this on click and we'll drop it above the style. All right, so if we're lucky when I click this, oh, it doesn't change yet because we also have to pass in all of state. It's okay, don't worry about it. So that we can say state dot id dot type. So now it's using the type from the state. Cannot read property. Oh, we're not passing in state down here. State. Oh man, I'm saving it so it's trying to process the whole 65 errors. Fetch and heck. There they all are, 2,000 something. So I literally need to not get ahead of myself in saving because it causes problems. Please stream every day. Oh man. Maybe. I mean, if I can get some like legit money coming in, if we can get like 70 people in here and I can become a Twitch partner, that's why I don't like Code Sandbox. That's fair. Not liking Code Sandbox is a fair thing. Okay. So state is state, and we are passing in state now. So if I save this, everything should be okay. Okay. So, talking about this, we can move this over a little bit. Oh, we can like move it clear over there. We don't need a lot of this stuff. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So, basically now when I click a tile, it should turn purple. This is great. This is actually way better than the first thing I had done. This is actually I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so before I actually had all of this stuff in another run. I had all of this stuff up here and was running into some, it felt like closure issues because when this guy ran, it was like its state was out of whack, something like that. It might have been because I had already added memo. But so at this point, with just use state, this is not too crazy, right? We have our set state here. Everything's happy. And this seems fairly performant. That is not what I wanted. So let's just have a quick fun moment here. And let's do 80. So now we have a much taller grid. That loaded pretty quickly. And if I click one of these guys, how are we doing? There's a tiny bit of lag after I click, but it's not too bad. Let's just add another 0 there. You know, whenever it's ready, it'll render, I'm sure. There we go. It loaded. It even managed my click. So, wow. That's surprisingly still doing pretty good. I was expecting this to be really laggy at this point. Go React. Man. Okay. Okay. Huh. That's fair. Key presses might be less laggy than, sorry. Clicks might be less laggy than than keyboard clicks for sure. That's probably a thing. Man, I was really thinking, oh, look at this. We're making a Minecraft sword. I'll stop. Or a Minecraft pickaxe. Oh, yeah. It's happening. Okay, we'll stop. This is just going to be super, super distracting. So, wow, I was really expecting this to not be so happy. It's really impressive. Well, let's just see if we can make the lag disappear. And then we'll get into some deeper concepts and how to restructure this in a way if we were dealing, because right now we're literally passing stuff in, and we can because we're just like one layer deep, right? But let's pretend like we're like not one layer deep, the tiles are way deeper. Like, how do we do that? How do we work around these kind of things? And we'll see if we need to make any more performance adjustments. So let's just first one, actually, let's pretend like it's way deeper, like way more components in between things, and passing things around like this just doesn't quite make sense. And there's some other ways to think about structuring it in order to pass things around, but we're just going to use context. So I'm going to create it right here. So I'm going to say const context equals react dot create context, and we could pass in like an initial default value there, but we're not going to. So then now we have this context. Context is definitely kind of a cool deal. It allows us to grab stuff out of a state within React rather than passing stuff around. So basically what we're going to be able to do is get rid of this concept of passing these things around and just move them up into the tile component itself, because it'll just pull it off the state. So to set this up, first thing we need to do is take context here and replace this app with context. Oh geez, context dot provider. So this dot provider that's on context is what provides the value to our app that we're going to be using. So I'm going to say value equals, and in this case we're just going to drop state and set state in there in an object. So now our app has this context that has state and set state, right? So then we can come up here to the tile and we can say, hey tile, we want you to have little context, which is equal to use context, and thank you for adding it there for me. I love this stuff. Then in here, I'm going to pass in big context. All right, so I've created big context, and now that I have big context, I'm referencing it locally as little context. Little context is this guy right here, this object. So I'm actually just going to copy this object, and rather than calling it little context, I'm going to just destructure it right here. All right, so before we were passing in state, but now we're getting state from the context, so I don't have to pass it in anymore, right? So then I can come down here and say, hey, state equals state doesn't need to happen anymore. Next thing is this set state. This guy was happening on click, right? So I'm going to just actually steal that out of there, and I'm going to come up here and replace this on click with it. So same thing, right? We're getting this set state from that state, right? And so now I don't need this on click. So if tile was super nested and way deep and like several children, several files away, now I have it in this context, and this guy right here, this object, which is our state and set state from our state, is available here. Now it doesn't know what tile is here, and that's okay, because we're actually on the tile. So it's just going to be the ID value that's been passed in. And here, I believe it can just be our type that's being passed. Nope, it needs to be the state type, because this type here that's being passed in is actually from our tile map, and we're never actually updating that one. That tile map is just used to render out the initial map, and then after that we're updating our map in state. So we'd still need to use state ID to grab the type off of the state. At that point, technically, we could be grabbing all of these values off of the state and utilizing them, and not really pass any of them. We'd at least need to pass the ID in so the tile knew which tile it was, but other than that, we could get everything off of state, which maybe isn't a bad idea. So there is that. Okay, so let's see, now that our set state is inside this on click, and up here, let's see if, oh boy, let's just change this back to 8. And let's save this, and let's see if things are working still. So if I click this guy, it works. If I click this one, it works. Okay, so things look good. Things are still working the same. Not noticing too much difference there. Let's add a 0 back. Squirrel. I totally get distracted. Okay, so this is good. Minecraft pickaxe coming up so we can be distracted. Just kidding. Okay, that's neat. And what about one more? So this one took a while to render last time, which I still suspect will take the same amount of time to render. Yep. I mean, 800 by 8, that's pretty big. And there's still quite a little bit of a delay when we click here. So that's a thing. All right, so the next question becomes, is there anything we can do to get that little bit of a delay to disappear? There might be. I honestly don't know what the result of this will be. There is a tool in React called useMemo. useMemo is a hook that allows us to process some code, and the result that we get back, we can store kind of like to reference and always use, but then we can say, oh, a value changed, so we actually want to rerun this and get the new value. So I'm going to take useMemo and I'm going to drop it right here, and then I'm going to say useMemo is going to return this guy here. useMemo takes a second parameter, so just to help us visualize this a little bit better, I'm going to do this. And the second parameter it takes is an array, right? And as long as nothing changes in the array, wow, oh, it needs a return here. Sorry. There we go. So as long as nothing changes in the array, let's just change this back to 8. So we can talk about it quickly. Oh man. Come on. You know you want to give it to me. Oh, goodness gracious. Did it say I should kill it because it's like struggling? No, it's good. What size is this? 8. What's going on over here? I broke something horribly. Let's just drop a value in here to watch and see if this changes anything. State ID. Wait. No, I don't think useMemo is being silly at this point, Good question, though. I think this guy here was hanging us up. No, it wasn't a someone. It was definitely a cat. You know it was a cat. And that's going to hate the cat lovers that are here, but you know it was the cat. Dang it. There we go. It's always a cat. And you have cats. I know you have cats. You're a cat person, aren't you? Yeah, okay. Okay. So, let's just see. Does that take a moment to re-render? No, okay. So things are good. Things are good. So, use memo essentially says, hey, if state ID changes, then rerun me. So let's just not give it a reason to ever re-render. All right, so now if I click on these, it doesn't know that there's a value that changed that's in here that should cause it to re-render. So at this point, it's just like, oh, I'm good, no big deal, right? So I can click these all day and nothing's gonna change. But once I tell it that, hey, the state ID, if that value changes, which is the whole object that we're updating right here. So we're like, hey, if this guy changes, then rerun it, right? Oh, but look at this. Do you guys see the problem? When I click on one, it's like undoing the previous click. And that's because each block has used memo and saved a version of its state. So this state here is out of sync. When I click this one, it was now out of sync for these ones. And now when I click this one was out of sync for this one. Right? So if I click one that's never been clicked before, it just resets back to what its original state was when it memoized it. Memoize. It's a fun word to say, memoize. Oh, goodness. That's just a fun problem. So the problem that we're actually running into is that this type of state doesn't work well for us because we're having to like update the state here. What we need is a more global state so we can send an event to tell it to update the state. All right? So use memo, we were trying to hope that would make it more performant for us. So let's just double check. If I come here to this one and we say B800, this should take a second to render. But the question is, when I click, is it more responsive? Do we see that it's actually faster in its update? So let's just give it a second. Here it is. Okay, so if I click, it's actually still laggy. It wasn't any faster. Darn, I was hoping it would be like, whoop, I'm faster. But that's not, that doesn't seem any faster than with use memo. But we still have the same problem, so that's fun. Yep. And probably part of the reason why it's not any faster is, and maybe if we get a moment, maybe we'll dig a little bit deeper into it. But I'm kind of running out of time and patience on this. But I do want to show how to fix this problem. This state again isn't winning for us. Sorry, this state isn't winning for us. So we need a different type of state that will allow us to solve this problem and actually allow us to send an event here to update a global state so that all of them have the same state and we don't have some memoized version of the state. Right? We want to escape the memoized version. Again, if we get rid of use memo, it didn't seem to be any faster. So hey, maybe this is just like not a useful thing at this moment for our app. But it felt like it was going to be better. But let's just pretend like it made a difference, because maybe it does, like at a much larger number, or maybe when we make this state change, it'll change. But basically, what I'm going to do is go to React hooks documentation, Here's the API reference. Here's the basic hooks. Here's some additional ones. And use reducer is an alternative to use state. It's like a level up. So it's like use state is like I want to manage like 1 or 2 values. When we start with use state, when we start doing something like this with like a large state object, for me, it's kind of a red flag in saying like, hey, when I update state, if it looks like this, I should probably actually be using a reducer because that's what this flow looks like. And so the use reducer hook is actually great for us. So like this is what its layout looks like. You can come here and learn more about the documentation on it, but I'm going to come to my old version here and steal some things here. So what do I need to borrow? We need the reducer function. So the reducer function just says, hey, this is how to manage the state. So basically we're going to be managing what are called actions. This is our action here, and the action has a type of change. And so because the type of change happened, we're going to do this type of change to adjust type, which is literally the same stuff we have here, right? So if I come and grab the tile piece looks pretty similar. I think I can run through the apps return and get all the stuff that we need here. So tile and through the apps return, and then I need use reducer instead of use state, and then I need to send dispatch instead of set state. Now I think everything is happy. Let's change this back to 8. Maybe we'll come back and visit the 800. Let's walk through this code and just kind of talk about what changes we made. So our state now doesn't have a set state to replace the whole state. What we have is a dispatch to dispatch an action, and then that action dictates how much state to change. And that dispatch always gets ran through the reducer. So use reducer takes a reducer function and an initial state, which is our tile state. So our reducer here is the main thing that's going to have things happen. So we've attached state and dispatch. So here our tile is still using use memo. I have a console log ID here, which we'll use in a moment just to show like what use memo is doing from a re-render perspective. We have here our style part, and then we have the on-click, which is dispatching our action. So this is the action here. We're saying, hey, the type is change, and the payload is the ID of the tile that got changed. All right, so it's very anonymous. Wow, just made the clear connection with the return being the set state. Nice, nice. So, what we're going to do here is watch where dispatch comes through here. So dispatch comes through here with this object. We have the current state here, and we need to always return the changed version of the state. So we're going to set state to whatever we return from the reducer. So reducer returns the changed state, the new version of state. So state is being spread here because we want to keep everything. In the payload, we have the payload is the ID. So now I'm going to say, hey, I want to update this ID, which is just a position here in our grid. Then I'm saying, hey, I want all of the contents of that state to stay, but I just want to change state. Based on its type, I want to toggle it to the other type. Right? So if I click out here, we get the same behavior that we had before. All right? Same behavior. And the only difference for us really is just how we're interacting with our state. Now, oh, sorry, we're actually getting the working behavior that we weren't getting before. Remember before when I would click, it would undo other changes because our state had been memoized, right? we were in this memo and we were using an older version of the state and updating the state with an older version. But now we're just dispatching an action and changing the global state. So this state we're pulling from context is a global one that's changing. So now that we've made these changes, I'm just curious if we add 2 zeros, if we see any type of, like, is it any faster now that we're using the reducer piece? So now that we've changed the type of state that we're using. So, oh boy, if I click, will our lag be reduced? It does not look that way. It actually looks like this increased. Oh, there's something being console logged a jillion times. That is going to kill us. This console log right here. Oh my gosh. Not that one. I don't know how we got to this file. I clicked a lot and I guess it thought I wanted to go somewhere. This guy's got to get commented out when we're this large. We cannot the thing that sucks about this sandbox scenario is it's got a console log here and problems like running all the time. Like there's no way around that. And so when I clicked that button, it literally was running console log quite a bit. Okay, is that any faster? If actually, I like without putting a timer on it and actually like timing and comparing, which I would do if I had more time, it might be faster. But this is not doesn't seem to be any like an insane amount of faster, but it is, this in my mind is definitely faster. There's one other thing we could do to make it way faster, but we're not going to touch on that today. But yeah, this is so once we switch to the reducer and we're doing this, it definitely makes a difference. So what I want to do though is drop us back down to a size of 8. And so just to clarify, I feel pretty confident in saying that once I change the state to the reducer pattern with that larger size, it's noticeably faster. So I'm going to bring the console log here out of here into the tile. All right. So if I pull this guy up here, oh come on, there we go. So right now, anytime I make a change, it console logs all of these guys because all the tiles are needing to be re-rendered because this use context here updated state, and so it's like, whoa, I need to re-render everything, which I would love to spend some time and figure out how to like get out of that part, which I might spend a few minutes after I show you this just to play around and see if there is a way. I have an idea, but I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure how I'd go about it. But anyway, now if I move it into the memo and we save it, we'll get the initial one because they all need to render. But now when I click one, it just is rendering that one. So we only actually ever call all of this stuff when the thing changes, which actually adds some performance benefits for us along the way. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's the whole flow. This setup I really kind of like for tile mapping and like managing some type of tile map system. Ooh, I see it. I see a pattern emerging here. Sorry, squirrel. Oh no. It's a little face and the eyes. Now he's got a mohawk. Okay, sorry. So I see this pattern working really well for me in a lot of scenarios. I've been working on a D&D, what is that thing called? Initiative tracker type thing, Dungeon Explorer, lots of my students have like tackled this, um, and after everything I've done, I think that like if I were to start it again, which I think I'm going to, this would be my basic structure that I would use to manage it. Only the cool ones do it. Yeah. So this is probably something we'll see in the future that I play with more, um, and kind of explore performance opportunities from. But overall, again, the whole point of this was in reply to Polly here being like, hey, what about context? This whole thing was like starting like, well, hey, why do we need state? How do we use state? That's funny. How do we use state? That's the name of the hook. Eventually, we end up getting to the point where we're talking about use context, use memo for potential performance gains, but then we don't actually see the performance gain until we move to the use reducer scenario, and have the dispatch happening. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turns out. But just make sure if to not have any console logs in Code Sandbox if this is going to be a big number, because it breaks like crazy. But that's it for me tonight, guys. It's been great. Happy to be back. I've got to figure out some more stuff around the stream, so I'm going to be kind of hit or miss occasionally for the next little bit, but eventually we'll get a good pattern going. And I hope to get this to be more like a class, where like we meet one day, go over an upcoming challenge. I give you guys a day to do it, and then like we review it that next day. So we kind of have like an off cadence. And then on Fridays, I'm trying to convince my wife to give me like an $8 allowance so that we can do pizza raffles on Fridays. Because that'll really pick up the people that come, you know? Like, it's like, you could win a free pizza if you come. But then we'll always make sure that it's the same person that wins. Then people will be like, wait, this is rigged. Just kidding. Topher Gates. We need to find Topher Gates so he can get that free pizza. It's been a long time. But he deserves it first. But anywho, have a great night, guys. Have a great weekend. I might be on again tomorrow. Heads up. I'm going to be recording some more content around authentication with a Node app and a React front end. So Node backend, React front end. But yeah, so be looking out for that to happen pretty soon. It might be tomorrow or Monday, but I owe my class some content around that and want to make sure that they have a good understanding for their final project. So yeah. Anywho, laters.